to add? I mean, have you seen something, or did you have any of your own ideas? Please write something up in chat. You can also just say them if you want. So, I can also start.
I think that why building service is so complex is because due to the fact that it has so many relationships with all the aspects in the building process. Like within building service itself, there are so many aspects that are linked together, like heating, ventilation, energy efficient, and also day lighting or visual lighting, and also acoustic. And all of this aspect or element, they're all linked together. So when you design one thing, you have to think about keep in your mind the other things as well. So I think that, and also outside of building service, uh, in the building process, when you construct or design something, you have to think beforehand for the building surface and all of the ventilation and the lighting stuff. So I think that's what it makes this complex. Uh, so many relationships and have to think beforehand when you're designing the building service.
Yeah, it's a good point. I agree. I think it's a really good point. Anyone else who would like to share their opinion? So I will try to add because I think this is a really good point. Basically, you come around most of the things that are complex and why it's complex. You could say in today, at least, I don't know how it is in Vietnam, but if I look basically around the globe, I would say in general, and also how it has been in Denmark, is that yeah, basically every building owner would like to have I mean, if they would like to be happy about the project, they would like to get a nice project for a big price. At least that will achieve a high degree of customer satisfaction. But unfortunately, this is something that is not always being achieved. There's a lot of sources, research that understates this. It is the impression of many researchers that the problems with delays, failures, and defects, and, among other things, is due to the complexity of building services is increasing, and at the same time, or you could say the reason that the complexity of the building service is increasing is because we have increased requirements for indoor environment, and we have at the same time as we have increased requirements for the building energy consumption of the building. And as you may know, that the energy consumption of buildings and the indoor environments are not often, it's always two parameters that are linked together, but often in the opposite direction. Meaning that if you want to achieve a really good indoor environment, it will often be on the cost of the energy performance of the building. Yeah. So basically, you could say the complexity of the building services comes due to the increased requirements of indoor environment, but also increased requirements for the energy consumption. And what often happens in construction is that if you don't focus on this early start, you will get the problems or the things that you haven't really designed properly. I would say they'll have to be achieved or fixed in the construction phase, and this is where it's going to be expensive if the problems are big enough, it's been basically like a domino effect. So if you have to like move one big pipe, or if the pipe is too small and you have to increase the diameter of a circular ventilation pipe, it's gonna maybe, and then when you've done that, because you need to meet the requirements, you do some calculation or something that was wrong, you'll have to move like the electricity part, and then you have to move the water sprinkler system, and etc. So basically, everyone, it's just like a domino or a deck of house cards. If you like remove one of them, everything is going to fall, and you have to like move it all over again. And just to add to that, a lot of some research says that at least we says that they have investigated this in a big manner, inadequate and improper execution of building service. So if you don't do that properly, it will entail that they cannot maintain the indoor environment, or if they do try to meet the indoor environment, they will probably end up with a considerably higher energy consumption than intended. So there's a lot of things to look into in this part. Yeah. So this was basically just my introduction for why it's important to look at the building services. Thank you for your comments. Yeah, I will find my next presentation. Just a moment. Yeah, before I continue, I would like to ask you guys, because I don't really have much knowledge background on what you've done so far. The only thing I know is what we used to work with, what we normally do when doing international courses in Denmark, and when we do Danish courses in Denmark. So when I had to prepare this class, I assumed that you did something similar as the normal classes. So when yeah, sorry, I just got a call. I just had to cancel that call. So in your second semester or first semester, did you work with the energy the energy frame of the building, like the building energy calculations using this program called BE18 or 50? I'll try to share my screen and I'll show you what I mean. The reason why I'm asking you this now is because depending on what you're answering, I'll tackle or handle this presentation differently. So, have you seen this program before? Have you used it in your courses before?
Yeah, Cara introduced us this program like near the end of the second semester.
Okay.
We got a glimpse of it and how it works and incorporated in our project at the end. So yeah, we have a little bit knowledge about it, not so much though.
Okay. have you? So you also used it for your projects? Is that true?
Yeah. Personally, I use it and
Yeah.
I haven't understand it that much, but I try.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things I'm doing online. Yeah.
Okay. So okay, that's fine. So that means okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you for the answer. I'll share the presentation with you. So basically, for now until the next 25 minutes, I'm gonna do a presentation. We'll see how far I can get, and after that, I think we'll just have a short break, so we can stretch our legs and I don't know, get some coffee or whatever. But first, I will start with the first presentation, which is this one. So basically, we're going to talk about the energy requirements in BE18, or building envelope. Okay. Energy calculations, you have been introduced to the Danish building regulations, I suppose. If not, you can find, I'll show you. If not, I can show you that you already, I already shared an English version of the building regulation in Denmark. I think you can find it in here somewhere. What is it? Yeah, this one basically, this is the English version of the building regulation in Denmark, which is the one that is updated to date. So these are the regulations we are following right now. And I also shared some other files. I think they're also in English, most of them. So basically, this will contain or describe what we're supposed to achieve. And this one, for instance, maybe you already worked with it last semester, I don't know. But this one, it will describe how to. So if this one talks about how much energy or how much effect we should use or heat loss during what are the requirements for heat loss, this one will actually describe how to actually calculate this in Denmark. And I just wanted to show you this website. This is basically where you can get the building regulation. It's a bit easier to use than a PDF file. And I don't know if you know this about this. Yeah, this is like I wouldn't say a hack, but you can always read this in English. Either you can download it, or that's basically the version that I put here. But you can also set if you have Google Chrome, you can actually set it up for translate. How do you call it? Like automatically translate. So basically, if you activate this one, this is in Danish now, but if you activate this one, which is on the language, not like the writing language, but like the language, and use this one says offer to translate pages that are not in a language that you can read. So if you activate this one and you add English, or I don't know if your Vietnamese is a part of this language package, but Danish is, English is at least. And if you activate it and add that language you prefer, you have this way you can always translate to English. And if I do that, so everything will translate into English, and you have like a way, and basically it's using Google Translate, but you still like get an understanding of what it means. And if you think the translation is really bad, you can also go back to the PDF. But personally, I really like using websites when I'm reading, because it's often interactive and it's easier to look around in. So in my presentation, we're looking at chapter 11. So basically, it's in here. And it's going to be easier for us to at least read. I suppose you don't understand Danish, but you probably understand English. So this is just like I think I would like to share with you. And one more thing I would like to share with you is this website. It's called SBE, which is the Danish Research Building Institute. Basically, government building research institute. They do a lot of knowledge sharing. And this one that we're going to look at is for free. It's called, you can basically just Google work with SBI.dk, or automatically go to build.dk. It changed the name. It's one. And we search for 213, which is the number of the book that we would like, that they created. And this book does not exist in English, but basically it's the energy needs of buildings. It's called SBI Introduction 230, the 6th edition. This one is free to read for everyone, and the best part about it is that it is like built in to the website. So if I translate to English, you can get like this is chapter 1, 2, and etc. And you can read it in English as long as it is online. So I hope this trick is gonna help you a bit. And of course, if you download this, you will only get the Danish version, and you have to translate it yourself. That's just, yeah, unfortunate. But the reason why I'm telling you this is because basically we're gonna work a lot with building regulation uh, and uh, and the building regulations in Denmark has some requirements for the energy consumption, for instance, and ventilation, etc. But the way that we actually document the energy calculations is described in more better or more easy, better. I would say, the better described this book, and on how to actually calculate this and how to actually use this documentation program to calculate it. Okay, so that's why I shared this with you. Okay, and if you, so basically sbi.dk, you can find instruction book number 230. Yeah. Okay, I'll go back to the presentation now. So basically, when I say chapter 11, it's the building regulation and paragraph 250 to 258 and paragraph 259 to 266. This is what we're going to talk about today, and how to achieve this, or how to document or calculate this. Okay. Basically, getting access to the building regulation and translate to English. This is what I already showed you. And yeah, of course, there was this way of using you could access it online and actually getting Google Chrome to translate it for you, or you can just use the PDF version, which is already in Canvas. Yeah. So energy requirements in the BE18. So basically, there's a couple of requirements we have to look into. One of them is the building energy requirement, which is the first one, and it has to be less than the energy frame. And the word energy frame is so what's the difference between requiring energy requirements and energy frame? So basically, the energy frame is a standard way to calculate energy requirements for a building. If I remember correctly, this is for all of Europe have the same standard way of calculating the energy frame, but the requirements are not the same all over Europe, not yet. And that's my impression is that the requirements in Denmark are better than the ones in the Netherlands are the lowest. So basically, the requirements are and then but the energy requirements of what does that mean, the energy frame? That's what I'm talking about now. So basically, the energy requirement includes the total amount of energy used in a building for heating. So basically, yeah, be it indoor environment heating, hot water from the hot water tap, cooling if you need to cool, ventilation, and in some cases lighting. And I'll come back to which cases lighting is a part of it and which cases lighting is not. Yeah. So basically, this is requirements, but the energy frame is the maximum amount of energy used. It is basically the same. So the energy frame is like so basically in Denmark, if you have let's just say heating, a lot of heating demand in Denmark will be salt, or you get heating from this district heating. So basically, it's remote heating from a big factory, and we have some pipes to all the houses so they get heating. This is energy in heating form, whereas if you need to have a ventilation system running, you don't need hot water, you need electricity. And the energy frame is basically a method how to compare district heating, for instance, to electricity energy. And so basically, I don't know if you have this word, but in Denmark we say you cannot add apples and pears like the fruits. But the energy frame gives like a key of how many apples is worth, how many pears and apples worth. So basically, the energy frame can tell us how much heating energy is equal. What is the equal of heating energy to electricity? And in that way, we can get like one number of the total or max amount of energy consumption for a building. I'll try to explain that in a different way in a bit. Okay, so there's the energy frame that we have to look into. Basically, how much energy the building is being used. Furthermore, we have to look at the minimum thermal insulations. Basically, this is a requirement for max U values and linear loss. And these requirements are so basically the energy frame is for us to ensure that we keep the low energy of the total building, and like in the usage time and the operation phase of the building, that we have a low amount of energy, and in that way we can meet the requirements from basically stop the global warming. Whereas the minimum thermal insulations requirements are set for the building physics. So if we have too low U values, you can get some kind of moisture creation or moisture in the construction. Basically, in Denmark in the wintertime, this is something we're going to talk about in 44, but this requirement, you could say that we have a minimum amount of insulation in construction is to ensure that we don't get condensation within the construction, because if we do that, we get some water creation. I would say water creation is really, basically the water is going to go out of the air. Air always has a bit of moisture within it. And have low U values which will condensate within the construction, and the construction insulation will get wet, and this will create like a mold, etc. And it's not really good for the environment, and not good for the construction. And this is something we would like to stop, prevent in Denmark, at least basically in every country. But this is like special in you could say countries where you have like cold climate in the wintertime or in the summertime. Okay, so the next one is what we have to look into is the maximum transmission loss through building envelope area. And this is basically what is the difference between transmission loss and the energy loss. Transmission loss is basically only related to the heat loss of the building, and it's related to heat loss in the building when you have the worst case scenario. So when we have like the worst case scenario, we have like a requirements of how much energy can we lose every second in the worst case scenario. And this is basically to prevent us from creating really, really big systems that only need to be used in like a few hours each year when the worst case actually comes. And the last one is the air tightness. So basically, the air tightness requirement is basically a requirement that, so yeah, I can explain that. If we don't have a tight air building, no, if we don't have an airtight building, we're going to lose a lot of energy in the wintertime. We can't really hold outside because the air is actually just exiting. So there's going to be an exfiltration. So basically, the air is going to be hot air is going to transport from the inside to the outside, even though your ventilation system is not running, and this will cause loss without you actually needing it. And it has also something to do with the creation of moisture, like condensation. So these are the four things that we have to look into in relation to energy requirements in the Danish building regulation, which is called BE18. Yes. So basically, the accumulated amount of energy estimated. So yeah, the energy frame, which I already told you, is the accumulated amount of energy consumed from a standardized building, which includes heating, hot water, cooling, ventilation, and lighting. And before I continue, I would just say that I really try to add a lot of slides into this, and maybe some of them I will go fast through. But basically, the reason why I did it so is that when you go back to your presentation, you can probably read. It's going to be easier for you to read some of the requirements, and you can use this presentation as a help when you're studying. Okay. So basically, when we're calculating the energy frame, and when I say we were calculating, basically the program we used, BE18, is going to calculate it for us. Yeah, so they are like divided into two, I would say. We have on the left side, we have building regulation concerning dwellings, which basically is like homes, uh, where you, and the other on the other side is called building regulation concerning other types of building. And what is the difference? And it's basically, it's not really good described in the building regulation, but I can explain to you what the difference is. So basically, dwellings, this is homes, like single person homes, or it could be, how do you call it, like a multi-stored home buildings where you have apartments, and etc. It could also be uh, those part of hospitals where you live, where people live if they're sick. I don't know. So basically, yeah. So on the other side, we have other buildings, which basically means offices, storage buildings, shops, sports institutions, etc. So what is the main difference between these two? The one on the left, basically you can translate into buildings that are being used all day, like from 24/7. So if you have a dwelling, it's not going to be actually, it will probably won't be used every day all the time because people are going to work, etc. But it could as well be every day. Whereas the building on the right hand side, they often have a specific work hours, such as from 8 to 5, 9 to 5, or whatever it could be. So basically, that's how they divided it. And the reason why, as you can also see, for the energy frame for dwelling, it's going to be a requirement for room heat, ventilation, hot water, and cooling. Whereas for other things, it's basically the same thing, like room heat, ventilation, hot water, and cooling. But it also includes lighting. So why isn't it included in that part? Well, if you look at the specific energy demands, it's going to be 30 kilowatt hours per square meter plus these 1,000 divided by floor heating floor area, whereas this one is 41. So basically, they increased the requirement for this one, but also you have to calculate the added lighting. So you could also like say that in other words, that for dwellings, you already put 11 kilowatt hours out of the calculation, which is preserved for lighting. And the reason why is that when you have a building which is being used like so randomly, it's gonna be not the energy, because of the energy optimization part of the building is not that interesting as if it was only being used in the day. So basically, using and also you could say that the requirements for lighting in these other types of buildings, we have regulations that are specific to how it should be optimized, both daylight wise, but also artificial light. And this will force people. So let's just see in this building if they're doing a really good daylighting or and artificial lighting optimization, it will actually have a positive effect on the energy frame. So that's a long story about why we have divided this. Also, the way we calculate this one is going to be a bit different because the building is not being used all the day. but when it's being used, it's going to use more energy compared to this one. And then in the last part, you can see something called the building class 2020, or the other word would be low energy buildings. So these are the minimum requirements for new buildings for the, yeah, basically it's called 2018, and we're already in 2020, 2021 now. So why aren't we using these requirements now? And the reason why is that Danish government and the Danish interests partners, stakeholders in the building area have not been agreed upon this yet. So basically, you can still, the requirement is still fixed on what it was in 2018. So this is still possible to actually build buildings like this. And they haven't really, I think, maybe Corona and etc. probably changed the ambitions. I don't know, but this is an optional way to do it. So basically, if you do a building which has a building class 2020, you can probably get more money for selling it, and some people which are like climate interested will probably be happy about this, and some people will actually do this. And if you all have like an optional strategy for sustainability, such as DGNB or something like that, this will actually be very profitable to do in that sense. So okay, so basically for your project this semester, we're gonna look at the right one on the right hand side. This, if I remember correctly, it's gonna be some kind of industrialized building, and this one will be the minimum requirement. Was this one could be optional if your building owner is actually interested in doing some kind of sustainable building. The time is flying. Yes, so this was the energy frame requirements in the, so this was the energy requirement in the building regulation, which I showed you before. And this is the minimum requirement for thermal insulation in buildings. So as you can see, external walls, basement walls, contact with soil, the U value is 0.3, and yeah, you can look into this. You don't have to go through all of them. It's basically just a list of minimum U value requirements. And this is approximated insulation, thickness of the insulation you use, like regular the insulation from today. So basically this means an insulation layer within the construction of 150 millimeters. The ceiling is a bit lower, 0.20, and that equals roughly 200. But I can already tell you that this is the minimum requirement. If you go with the whole of your building envelope, like all the walls and all the ceilings and all the windows and etc., with the minimum requirements, you are probably not going to achieve this this goal of this energy frame, because the minimum requirements has nothing per se, nothing to do with energy consumption. It has something to do with in order to prevent mold and condensation during the construction. So that's why we have these minimum requirements. Just keep that in mind. Furthermore, besides having minimum requirements for the single parts of the construction and installation, we also have requirements for windows, glasses, and in the old days, this was calculated in one way, and in the old days, basically like 3 years ago, this was calculated the way we watched it was in one way, and now we changed it. So I just wanted to show you how it was supposed to be. So basically, you would calculate for the windows and the glazing doors. We will calculate how much energy comes, or how much energy loss do we have during the winter time, and how much energy do we actually get through throughout the year. And this calculation is called something we call EREF. And basically, every time someone who's making a window is creating a window, he's gonna need to do this calculation and see, and they need to maintain these values for 2018, and this one has not been set to date yet because we haven't applied the regulation from 2020, as I told you before. We're still running on building regulation 2018, even though we're in 2021. But that's the maximum requirements for windows. When we look at the building envelope, we also have like requirements where we calculate how much energy we're going to lose throughout the building envelope, and if in total we should. These were the requirements, and I'm just going to skip this part because now they changed the way we calculate it. So basically, what they changed now is that you include. So basically, when we're doing a heat loss calculation for the roof, for the walls, for the doors, for the windows, for the floors, basically we were calculating the heat energy, not the energy loss, the transmission loss for the whole building, the heat loss for the whole building when we have minus 12 degrees. This was supposed to stay minus 12 degrees outside and 20 degrees inside. When we have calculated that and divided it with the square meter heated floor area. This is the new requirement. And again, so basically we have this calculation where we have to look into 12, we have 12 watts per square meter plus 6 divided by E is the amount of stores we have. So if we have a 2-story building, this is going to be 2. And 300 divided by the area, the total area, heated area. So basically calculating this will tell us what our requirement will be. And then if we input requirements for U values, or we're not going to meet these requirements. So again, just to emphasize, to point out that this is not going to be enough to just follow these minimum requirements. This should only be seen as, in every case of the whole building, it should never go below this, so building preventive percentage. But we also need to calculate this. Okay, so there's a lot of calculations we've been talking about so far. And the last one will be the air tightness requirement. And this is not something that we will actually calculate. Basically, this is a minimum requirement. So minimum requirement for 2018 in Denmark is when we do this, basically it's 1.0, and for 2020 it's 0.5. But what is this air tightness requirement actually? So basically, some buildings, like randomly buildings in Denmark, will be checked today, where you do this, you fill out the door void, you put in this measurement equipment. So basically you have a ventilation system here, or a ventilator that will create a pressure of 15 pascals. So basically forcing the air into the building, and at the same time we will have like a measurement of how much air is exiting from into the building. And this one, basically every time you do a normal pressure on the pressure in the building, the air is going to force in this one. And then all the air that's coming in and out here will also go in and out through leakages in the building. So if your building is not high, it's going to be this number is going to be higher, and the requirement today is 1. And if your building today, after you manage to make a building, it's below or higher than this, you need to go back to your building before actually using it and doing some extra tightness around the window, or depending on where in the construction your building is not today. So this is something we don't have much focus on. But what can we use it for? That's maybe the most interesting part. Well, since we know that the requirements should be 1.0, 2020 0.5, you can use it for calculating the infiltration. So basically, how many liters per second per square meters will we have leakage in the building. And this is interesting when we're looking into ventilations part of the building, because infiltration is something that we have. It's natural heat loss, which basically means that the heated air from which is 20 degrees inside, it's going to exit the building, and you can't get any kind of yeah, how do you call it? It's gonna exit the building, and minus 12 degrees in the worst case, it's gonna enter the building. So you need to reheat all the air that is exiting the building. Yeah. So the lower that number could be, the less air we need to reheat. And if we get this to run through the ventilation system instead, we have a heat regenerator called. Basically, we have this equipment that can reheat the air. So basically, the air exiting the building will pass through the air entering the building, which will reheat the cold air outside all the way up to, in some cases, 90%. So basically, if we can ventilate through our ventilation system instead of the gaps in the construction, like I said, through the infiltration, we can reuse up to 90% of the heat in the best case. In the worst case, it's I think the minimum low requirement for regenerating heat is 85. Yes. So basically, so far I've talked a lot about these. Back to these different kinds of requirements that we need. I would like to recap them really quickly. So this is the energy requirement we need to look at, the minimum insulation and the transmission loss for the whole building area, envelope area, and air tightness. So all this maybe sound a bit difficult, but luckily we have this program which can help us administrate this. Okay. I think now would be a really good time for us to have a short break for maybe 10, or let's just say for let's just say for 5-10 minutes. Okay, I have to say pick something. Let's just say we'll have a break for 10 minutes, and that means in 10 minutes from now I'm gonna continue this presentation. So go out and stretch your legs, get a cup of tea or a pot of coffee or something like that. Right?